Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday / What's on my desk, and I'll explain why after the intro. So why is this a Q&A / what's on my desk? Because one of the questions happens to be about a very controversial watch that came out in Basel 2019, which is in this white box. And I'll talk about this in a minute, but let me jump into some questions first. First question comes from Michael Yu. Hey, is that a new intro music? Yes, it is. Ian decided that the whole shooting thing with Q&A Tuesday was more cowboy themed, so he decided to change the music. I give Ian free reign in what he does. Some of you guys didn't like that intro music. I think it's pretty cool. But nevertheless, this is a team effort. These shows would not be possible without my guy, Ian. Ian, you want to pop yourself up on the screen again? Anyway, so he oftentimes makes decisions, and I give him free reign on those decisions. We do review every video once it comes out, and all the cool effects, all the cool transitions, and the funny things, and so on and so forth. I have a team of 3 people that review all that, myself included. So before the video goes live, we do go through things, make some changes, some cool edits, come up with ideas for some of these cool edits. 2 brains are better than 1. But again, credit to Ian on the new intro music. Hope you guys see it more fitting with the cowboy theme. Anyway, on to your question. What do you think of the discontinuation of all Oyster bracelets GMTs by Rolex? Good decision, bad decision? What do you think about the spike in the price of Oyster GMTs in the secondhand market? Thanks, and do more videos. I am doing more videos every Tuesday, Thursday. You guys can always count on a Q&A on Tuesday and a What's on my desk on Thursdays, and in between some of my blog on travel, business, and so on. Look, I told you guys before, seemingly every single manufacturer continues doing the same thing over and over and over. Rolex especially, few base models and variations of it. By variations, it's bracelets, it's dials, it's bezels, it's metals. It's a formula that has worked for them for ages, and if it's not broke, let's not try to fix it, correct? I guess you can say that the Oyster bracelet on GMT discontinued based on the fact they came out with a Jubilee model of it. I personally don't like the GMT Batman on a Jubilee bracelet. I like the Oyster bracelet. I think it's more fitting to the watch. Whatever decision Rolex makes, they know what they're doing, because these things are selling like hotcakes and they're trading way over list. The GMT Batman on a new Jubilee bracelet is trading at twice its retail value. It made the other GMT on the Oyster, which is now seemingly discontinued because they came out with this one, go through the roof as well, because now all of a sudden it's become a collectible. They no longer make it. This is what happens with Rolex. They stop making something that automatically jumps through the roof. So no, it's not a bad decision on their part. Just because I don't like the way the watch looks doesn't make it a bad decision on Rolex's part. So I hope that answers your question. Go with whichever one you like. You really can't go wrong if you don't mind spending the kind of money these things are fetching right now. Next question comes from the Davy, and this is a comment and a question. Great video as always, Roman. Thank you. I think Ferrari is a kiss of death due to not everyone that doesn't drive a Ferrari would consider buy the Ferrari themed watch. When the Ferrari version of the watch comes out, the incredible purchasability of Ferrari owners might fool the brands into thinking the market is bigger than it is. Just my guess. Anyways, Roman, can you talk a little bit about Girard Perregaux Lariata Skeleton Steel? What do you think about it versus the AP Chrono? I know you love AP. The only thing I have against it is I feel like it's due for an update with in-house movement and a display case back. Thank you so much. Let's talk about Ferrari and the kiss of death. You made a logical guess, and I will agree with you to some extent. Now, you mentioned in that statement that it's just a guess. It's a decent guess, but I will respectfully disagree. The brands are not targeting Ferrari owners. In fact, I know quite a few Ferrari owners that could care less to have a watch to match their car, or Bentley owners, Maserati owners, Lamborghini owners, and so on and so forth. What they're doing is they're utilizing Ferrari logo or the Ferrari brand as something that's recognizable across the globe, much like they would use a celebrity. When AP made a LeBron James watch, they used LeBron James as one of the most recognizable celebrities in the world in order to hype up the sale of that watch. And this is exactly what it's doing. It's a lot cheaper to use the Ferrari logo and be able to make a slew of watches than it is to get someone like LeBron James, an ambassador, or Rafael Nadal, for Richard Mille for that matter. So yes, they are counting the fact that Ferrari owners would jump on that particular watch, but they're not banking on it, if you know what I mean. How many Ferraris are out there? There's not a whole lot of Ferraris out there, or Ferrari owners for that matter, because Ferrari makes only a handful of cars a year, and only a handful of guys in the world can afford Ferraris, right?
What's the retail on one of those?
More than you can afford, pal. Ferrari.
If they were to count on those guys to buy the watches, then by all means, it would not work out.
Smoke.
But they are banking on the fact that Ferrari is a recognizable logo. Much like everybody knows what an eBay logo looks like or a PayPal logo looks like. It's just a name that's recognizable. It's a name that's appealing. It's a name that's appealing in the expensive world, right? You associate Ferrari with an expensive item, and this is how they use it. And honestly, I think the kiss of death for Ferrari has stopped with Hublot, because their Hublot Ferrari watches are selling and they're selling well. And believe me when I tell you, they're not going to Ferrari owners. I've sold a slew of them, and maybe 1 out of 50 people that have bought the watch actually owns a Ferrari. They buy them because they look great. They buy them because they're designed well. They're well-made watches. And that's why I think the Ferrari curse has kind of stopped with Hublot. Moving on to the GP Lariata skeleton. Guess what? I did a what's on my desk on the GP Lariata, so you can check that out hands-on. I picked the steel PVD version to show on that episode, but I will tell you what I think of it versus the AP Chrono. Very similar history. GP Lariata, 1975, which was a great year because that was the year I was born. I don't want to compare the two. And you often hear people say, oh, GP bit off the Royal Oak. It's a cheaper version of the Royal Oak. A, it's not that cheap. Retail on a steel is what, 32 or something, and on the PVD is like 38. So it's not that cheap. It's comparable in price. It's from a company just as old as AP. Girard-Perregaux's been around for 230 years now, and they've been around the whole time, much like AP. So it's really not fair to compare the two because they're really two different watches. Just because the bezel on the GP somewhat resembles the optimal bezel on the Royal Oak doesn't make it the same exact watch. It's a watch in its own right. It's aligned within the GP lineup of its own right with many different variations, with the skeleton probably being the best one. And guess what? They're hot sellers. I sell them like hotcakes. People want the GP skeleton, they sell, and they sell extremely well. Why? Because it's a great looking watch. It's a hand decorated movement. It's a full transparent skeleton front and back. And at the end of the day, most people out there do follow the advice I always give: you buy what you like. So if you like that watch, don't compare it to anything else, because when you start comparing models versus models, this is when it gets hairy and you start losing your mind, because there's so much to choose from in the watch world today for so many brands, and a lot of them look alike, because guess what? They do all bite off of each other. You know, whatever is hot, whatever the trends are, they all try to fit that trend, because at the end of the day, they want to sell watches. You know, and only a few can afford to stand out with something that's completely different, mostly independents, and they don't make as much money as the big boys do. You know, there's a formula out there to be successful in the watch business, and most major manufacturers follow it for hundreds of years at this point. Last but not least, what you said in regards to update with the in-house movement and display cage back, I agree with that. You know, I completely agree with that statement. I would love to see a chrono skeleton version rather than the double balance that they made or perpetuals. I would love to see a chronograph full skeleton, just a plain Jane chronograph, stainless steel, but skeleton. That would definitely make my day, and certainly a watch I would personally buy and probably end up keeping. Next one is from Cat 4,000 or 40,000? Cat 40,000. Hey, everyone, a great video once again, as always. Thank you. I wonder if you can do a what's on my desk on the popular big watches from early mid to 2000s, like the Breitling Super Avenger, Graham Chronofighter, or even some early 2000s Panerais. I believe that these watches are in steel right now, since the secondhand prices are dropping below 50% pre-owned, and I'm sure there are other people watching your channels that are interested in these pieces, as I am. I will do a what's on my desk on Panerais. I just picked up a bunch of Panerais in my trip to Hong Kong. I won't be able to show you the Breitling Super Avenger. I haven't had one in stock in ages, but I do want to talk about this briefly, and I'll tell you before moving on to the grand finale question and then the mystery white box, right? Graham Chronofighters are still selling. I still have them up on my website. Yes, they sell at a big discount, but they always have. And I told you guys before, I did a what's on my desk with Graham watches. And I told you the reason for that is because this is a company that's been struggling. It's been struggling for a while. So it's sort of caught in between, you know, trying to raise money by selling our closeout and selling their watches cheaper than usual versus coming up with new creative models to sort of bring their name back up and be able to sell at a normal discount like other brands do, like 30% off per se, right? So check that episode out. I talk about Graham Chronofighters. I want to talk specifically about the Super Avenger. When the Super Avenger came out, it was a big, bulky, flashy watch that was super affordable. The variations of it retailed from $4,000 to $6,000, depending on the combination. And guess what made it even more popular? That was the #1 watch back then to put diamonds in and have a big diamond encrusted watch. A behemoth of a watch, 48 millimeters, super thick, big pilot, shiny bracelet, beautiful, gorgeous watch, and very, very affordable. It was a flashy watch that was affordable. Where are those diamond encrusted pieces now? I know a guy that probably still has 30 to 40 pieces because all he does is after set watches. And they're sitting in the back of his safe, and he knows that they're pretty much worthless right now because nobody out there is buying up diamond encrusted Breitlings, and that's just the plain truth of it. But Breitling is still a popular model. Breitling still makes the Avenger line, except in different variations, on straps, on PVDs, with creatively designed dials. So the Avenger line did not die. It's that Super Avenger, that big stainless steel bulky one that you're talking about in the mid-2000s that kind of died off due to the fact that it was really, really hot and it went really, really cold. And it happens all the time to models within specific lines. Did that kill Breitling off? Absolutely not. Breitling is doing extremely well, coming out with great timepieces year in, year out, and it's still selling like hotcakes because it's dubbed as the more affordable Rolex, you know, much like Omega is. It's going to be here for years to come. And as far as Panerai, I talked about this before again, that the whole Panerai thing has kind of died off, how they just really need to reinvent themselves because they haven't been in the market long enough, much like some of the other big boys like AP. They're not Rolex, okay? And so I really feel like Panerai needs to come out with something completely different, something that people are going to say, wow, that doesn't even look like a Panerai. Maybe that can end up being a flop, but that may end up helping them. And that's the reason why these mid-2000 Panerai models that used to sell pretty much at list and some over list are now trading less than half price. They have lost that appeal. They have lost that collectability because every single watch they make is a limited edition. They're a limited run. And people are just not buying into that anymore. Hope that answers some of your questions. Last but not least, I'm going to take a question from GMG. Hi Roman, great video as always. I'd like to hear your take on this. How come the current most sought after luxury watches are sporty and chunky, while the most popular fashion watches, Daniel Wellington and BMT, etc., are dressy and minimalistic? Is it just a matter of target demographics? Could the fashion watch trends paradoxically affect the high-end tier, i.e. AP code 1159, which is overly targeted towards millennials? Okay, well, guess what's in a mystery box? A watch we talked about a lot, watch that everybody was saying is ugly and it's not going to sell and so on and so forth. I finally got my hands on an Audemars Piguet code 1159. And that's why this is sort of a mix of Q&A and what's on my desk. Let me show you the close-up of this watch. For those that said that this watch was going to be a flop and made all the fun of it, are absolutely wrong. These watches are selling, they're selling well. And this is actually the first time I actually have a code 1159 in stock because I couldn't get them. This is their rose gold chronograph version. I talked about this watch briefly when I talked about, again, Baselworld when they first introduced it. Sort of that case within the case. It feels like this watch is inside another watch. Transparent automatic movement. And again, I'm not going to do a what's on my desk. I'm just simply going to show you the watch. But I don't have an MVMT watch here to compare it to, but I'll tell you right off the bat, there's no comparison of the code 1159. And I don't necessarily think that this is a watch remotely similar to Daniel Wellington or MVMT and some of the other thin watches that you sort of labeled as millennial watches. I don't even know what millennial watches are. But I will tell you one thing. Look at the thickness of this timepiece. All right? I'm wearing a right now, and it's just about as thick as an offshore. So this is definitely not one of those thin, flimsy watches that you see in brands such as Daniel Wellington, Ben Sherman, or MB&T, and the slew of others. Fashion watches like MB&T, why are they so slim? Why are they so minimalistic? The answer is cost. An MB&T watch was what, $100? I don't know what Daniel Wellington's are trading for, but I imagine it's within that same price range, in that same realm. So there's not much in them. It's a small case with a quartz movement, with a low-cost strap. It's not a crocodile strap, such as on this watch, right? Again, they have to be able to retail those watches for $100. In order to retail those watches for $100, there's not a whole lot you can put in there in order to make the watch cost an X amount of money if you want to make 5X on the money invested into the particular watch, or 4X, right? I don't know exactly what is being made on those watches, and the reason for that, it's MVMT watches were one of the most highly advertised across social media watches out there, targeting millennials, and not just millennials. Everybody and their mother was buying MV&T watches. I know guys that are in their 70s that own an MV&T watch because it's small, it's cheap, it's something they called a beater watch, and if it breaks and they spend $80 on it, then they can throw it out and buy another one, you know, sort of like paper plates. I mean, no offense, MB&T, I'm not trying to compare you to paper plates, but you know, they're still cool looking watches, and what they've done in terms of advertising and marketing is something I personally take note and use some of those techniques within branding my own brand, Luxury Bazaar. They did a wonderful, wonderful job, especially using influencers. One of the influencers they used was Cold, which is one of the guys I'm subscribed to on YouTube. I love the videos that he makes, and he was a big MVMT influencer. And seemingly him being a millennial, obviously makes you think that he's targeting millennials, but not necessarily so. So could the fashion watch trend paradoxically affect the higher end tier? Absolutely not. It's the other way around. What these guys do with fashion watches, they actually try to come out and create their own product. Some of them are influenced by some of the bigger boys like APs, and they do try to mimic some of the more expensive stuff that's out there. But most of them are in the right of their own, and same goes for the big boys like Audemars Piguet or the Code 1159. I don't see anyone out there from AP or Vacheron or some of the other major brands like Rolex say, oh, did you guys see that new MV&T watch that they came out? Maybe we should make something like that, but in the higher end. They would probably just get laughed at the boardroom. But let's talk about thin watches. Who is the record holder for the thinnest watch out there? Well, it used to be Vacheron, and then it's now the Bulgari Octo, right, that beat that record. So the thinnest watches in the world, and Vacheron made their thin watches as early as 1950s or 60s, I believe. And this is way before MV&T, Daniel Wellington, and any other of those fashion brands, or before fashion brands were even around, right? So no, to answer your question, the fashion watch trends will not affect the big boys such as AP, Vacheron, and any other major watch manufacturers. They are in the right of their own. They've been doing this stuff for hundreds of years, and no new watch, even one as successful as MV&T, which was just bought over by the Movado Group, by the way, for some obscene amount of money, is going to influence the big boys. Hope that answers your question. Last but not least, I want to show you what's on my wrist. I normally don't do this on Q&A, and I'm going to do something different this time. I'm going to give you guys a pop quiz. I'm going to show you a watch that's on my wrist. Comment below and tell me if you know what this watch is. And no, I'm not giving away free t-shirts or anything else if you get the question right. I'm just curious to test your guys' knowledge on what this watch exactly is from Audemars Piguet. Guys, that's it for me for today. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. As usual, comment below your new questions. It's getting harder for me to keep up with it due to the increased number of subscribers that I'm getting, which is great. So don't get upset if I don't get to your question. I try to do my best to answer a few choice questions, which I feel the entire family on my YouTube channel will enjoy. Again, once again, thanks, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday.